Well, I don't even see my screen is still spinning. Here we
There we
go.
go. We are
I
live.
think you're live now, Alan. Yes,
We
and
are
we do
live.
have attendees. We were everybody. Chip Cooper, by the way, for FTC Guardian, and my sidekick and partner, who you see on the split screen, Alan Cutts. We're coming to you with this hangout based on the new Webinar Jam screen and setup and controls and all of that. So I apologize in advance if I'm a little slow in reacting to this. Alan's been trying to train me, but I'm sort of an old dog, and it's hard to train an old dog new tricks sometimes. So, we typically start off with me, and then we switch. But here we are on a split screen. So far, so good. But the thing that bugged us was until I hit the final go live button, we didn't see any attendees. How can this be? We usually are very well attended. So I'm going to ask Alan. Alan's got a very important story to tell, and I don't want to take up any more time from him. But I'll let him tell it. There was a big event in the last 2 weeks. I think he may have told you a little bit about what he was going to do, but he's actually done it. And so without any further introduction by me, I'm going to let him tell his story.
Yeah. So I think, a lot of you guys know who've been around for a while that I'm from Texas, from Austin, South Central. I grew up on a ranch in Texas. So Austin, San Marcos, that whole area. So I grew up on a cattle ranch. And, everybody knows that Chip is a barbecue judge. Well, Chip had been to a barbecue thing, and he came back and said, man, this steak judging stuff is taking off. So I went and got certified to be a certified steak judge. And
what's the organization? What is it?
Yeah, steak.
Whatever.
Steak Cook-Off. Steak Cook-Off Association. So I went and got certified to be a steak judge and judged my first competition weekend before last. Judged 22 steaks. I ate over 2 pounds of steak. Yeah, well, it was. I mean, I do like my steak. I mean, I do eat steak once a week at least. But I have to tell you that I was a little surprised on how few good steaks there were. Because they were all given the same steak to start with, and there were 22 people, judging, doing it, and they were going for like $200, $300. I mean, they were, wasn't a small prize purse, and $500 for the winner or something like that. And but there were really only 2 or 3 that were worth the crap. The rest of them just weren't on the mark at all. So, but it was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it. So
if you ever go to one of these steak cook-off things, look for Alan. He'll be the guy in the cowboy hat.
Yeah.
Probably wearing
Yep.
It's really important. I told him before he actually judged this first thing, it's really important. Judges always wear a judge's hat. I've got a hat that I wear for the pork events, and it's not a cowboy hat, but it's sort of a floppy brim kind of fedora kind of thing. And so he's all ready to go. I mean, he's got the hat.
I showed up in New Jersey, in Rahway, New Jersey, which is up near Newark, to the Texas tilt, cowboy hat, boots, Wranglers. Yes, ma'am. How are you? I'm from Texas.
Yeah,
I get from the full Monty.
Don't mess with Texas. They know their steak. They know what it's all about. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's terrific. We're both judges now, both certified judges, one in pork and the other in steak. So we've got more stories to tell later, but we need to get on with the program.
If you can hear me, guys, try refreshing your screen, because Chip and I seem to be able to see each other absolutely fine.
Let me go to the single screen here with me.
Okay.
Does that help any?
Can people see just Chip right now? Does that help at all in the single screen? Can hear you now. Yep.
And I'm going to go to share my screen, and everybody hopefully can see.
There we go. Yeah, I don't know. We were in the dual screen, which I've been on them before, and the dual screen works.
Okay, Alan, are you seeing the title slide? You think everybody is?
Yes. Yeah. Everybody's seeing the title slide, right?
So here we go with the presentation. You see the title there on the slide, FTC Disclosure Workshop. This is our second one in a series. And in this particular presentation, we're going to be talking about guidelines, FTC guidelines for advertising claims. What are the disclosures that we need to make? So let me get started here, and we'll go to the brief housekeeping announcement that you've seen before. The presentation is for informational purposes only. It's not legal advice, and we're certainly not affiliated with the Federal Trade Commission. All right, so we're going to be talking about deceptive ad claims, and some of what I'm about to present is going to be by way of review. If you've attended these Hangouts fairly consistently, you probably have heard some of this, but we need to go over it fairly quickly. So, what is an ad claim? It's essentially, in very simple terms, it's a statement that you might make about the performance, features, or benefits of your product or service, and it's made for the purpose of persuading a consumer to take action, which in many cases is buy now. It could also mean sign up now, or sign up for a free ebook, something like that. And it can be proven true or false. And as we all know, it's highly regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. Now, for those of you who might be new members, you probably should jot down one word here, and that is puffery, P-U-F-F-E-R-Y, which is a term of art, and it's another type of statement that you can make about your product or service intended to sell or cause your a consumer to take action, but it is not technically an ad claim, and therefore it is not regulated at all, meaning there is zero risk as far as an FTC claim is concerned. So if you have, and we've covered puffery in at least 3 or 4 different Hangouts, and so if you go to the members area and key into the search term window puffery, P-U-F-F-E-R-Y, you'll see some other Hangouts that are dealing with that. So it's very important to compare and contrast puffery with an ad claim, which is highly regulated. And you've probably heard me talk about these 2 classic examples: lose 10 pounds in your first month and make $10,000 in your first month. And if you think about these very simple examples, there is a very specific amount of pounds and dollars to be made or lost within a very specific time, your first month. So it can be proved true or false. Those 2 are ad claims, and again, highly regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. Now, what is a deceptive ad claim? The FTC says that an ad claim is deceptive if it contains a statement or if it omits important information that is likely to deceive consumers who are acting reasonably under the circumstances, and that statement or omission is material, meaning that it's important for a consumer to make a decision whether or not to buy or use the product or service. I'm going to give you a quick example here, and we'll see more in just a couple of minutes. For example, if you're selling a product that not only has a price associated with it, of course, but it also has a requirement that the purchaser purchase, in addition, a service contract, then the fact that you have to purchase the service contract in order to use the product would be highly material. That's the 3rd bullet there. If you're a consumer, you want to know that, because that factors into the cost to own or use the product, not just buy it. And if you omit that information and then break the news to the consumer later that he or she has additional purchasing to do, then there's probably going to be some concern. Certainly a consumer who's been deceived, according to this definition. So that's a classic example. And then we know that if you're dealing in ad claims, that the FTC requires that you substantiate or back up what you're saying with respect to, there are 2 examples: lose 10 pounds in the first month and make $10,000 in your first month. So here it is real quick. I'm going to run through it. So before you publish the ad or disseminate it, you must have a reasonable basis for the claim, objective evidence to support it, to back it up. And the kind of evidence that you need depends on the claim. We don't have, I think, in this presentation, the scope to go through all of that. Maybe we will on a future Hangout. Examples, however, might be scientific studies, documented customer performance, and objective surveys But at a minimum, you need to have the kind of evidence that you say you have, if you say that you have any. And then finally, I get asked this question a lot. I've got a lot of customer testimonials that say they lost 10 pounds. Is that sufficient? It is not sufficient substantiation solely for that purpose. You need other studies and other documentation to back up what you're saying. Now, the FTC has published guidelines for these disclosures to be made in circumstances where if you didn't make them, you would be involved in a deceptive claim, right? Way back prior to 2000, but beginning in 2000, there was the .com disclosure publication that dealt with digital ads in general, digital advertising. It was their first attempt to publish guidelines for digital ads. And then secondly, in 2013, they updated that for purposes of disclosing certain disclosures necessary for small real estate devices like smartphones, very small screens, and also social media. And of course, their guides for ad claims cover sales and promotions through all channels, including the traditional channel, TV, radio, and print, and the newer, more exciting channels for us, the digital channels, desktop, computer, mobile device, that sort of thing. All right, so let's get down to the types of disclosures, what they need to be like in order to be in compliance. There are a lot of details involving the disclosures, but what you see here is a quick summary of, I think, the more important points to be made. And the guideline, of course, the overarching guideline is that the disclosures must be clear and conspicuous so that a consumer will see them and understand them easily. Okay, so here are the points. In very simple terms, the disclosures need to be close to the claim itself, and that's called proximity, close to the claim. The disclosures also need to be prominent. They need to be easily seen and noticed by a consumer, even to the point where the FTC says unavoidable, which is a very high level of prominence. If you're having a link that links to more descriptions of what you mean by way of your disclosure, the link, the anchor text for that link must convey importance. It cannot just say more information. It's got to say something that will catch the eye and draw attention by the consumer. It needs to be displayed prior to the purchase. It's not going to help the consumer if a disclaimer or disclosure is made after the purchase, right? Got to be prior to. And if your disclosure is in the form of a block up or a blockable pop-up, it's not going to work because it can be blockable. And some browsers provide an option to block pop-ups, obviously. And in certain circumstances, repetition may be required. And then finally, it applies to all devices, these rules, all devices, including mobile devices. So let's get into a few examples. And let me say this. Let me go back a couple of slides to the 2013 .com disclosures. If you go there, you can find it in PDF form simply by Googling FTC.com disclosures. And there's a lot of text in there, and I really don't necessarily suggest you read all of it. I don't suggest that you don't, but I think if you really want a quick summary, turn to the back of this publication, .com disclosures 2013, and there are a whole bunch of examples. And what you're going to see in this presentation are a few of the examples that I copied from that 2013 publication, .com disclosures. And you see here, imitation pearl dangle earrings. And, this could say pearl dangle earrings, and then in real small text somewhere else, parens, it's imitation. It's not real, right? So this is a classic example that was in the .com disclosures exhibits. It's clear, it's conspicuous, and it's proximate. I mean, the key term here is pearl dangle earrings, and the word imitation is right in front of it. Again, a classic example of proximity. That imitation word is a disclosure about the nature of this product. Without it, you would probably assume that it's real pearls in the earrings. But with that disclosure, you know that they're imitation pearls. Obviously, if you look at the price, you could probably guess that as well. But anyway, that's what the FTC says. Now, here's another example about a home monitoring device. I think there's a webcam there. And you can see from this large view that there's a disclosure under the webcam, and you see it there. It says usage requires a $9.99 monthly service fee. But this is not proximate, according to the FTC, because you can see to the right there, the arrow on the right is pointing to the price, $99.99 per camera, right? So if you're a consumer, that's where you're going to go. You always want to know how much does it cost, right? And so that's where your eyes take you. You say, well, it costs $99.99, but it really doesn't, because this disclosure over here says there's another $9.99 a month you've got to pay as a service fee, and it's not close to the price. In fact, if this were going to be proximate, the disclosure should be right underneath the price there. Very, very close, and obviously presented in a way that it's prominent, not only proximate. So this is another classic example. And here we see that if this same ad were viewable with a mobile device, then it's terribly defective, because if we go back, this is what we're really looking at. This ad, everything on the left side of the page that contains the disclosure, the fact that there's a monthly service fee for $9.99, isn't even available now because of the real estate limitation of a mobile device. So you've got to plan these ads, if they are viewable on a mobile device, that your disclosure is also viewable and not chopped off, as you see in this example. And then we have basically an ice chest here, refrigeration chest that you can take on a picnic, that sort of thing. And it illustrates the rule about links. Now, suppose, for example, this link said simply more information. Then it would not be such that it would attract the attention of a consumer, that there is important and relevant information, right? More information, who's going to click on it? Very few. But if the anchor text, which is what you see there, actually reads important health information, then, and if it's presented in a way that it is prominent, which I believe it is here, not far underneath the price, then the typical consumer is probably going to click on it and say, well, is there some disclosure there about the fact that it won't keep meat cold beyond a certain level of degrees Fahrenheit that might be important for certain meats? So that sort of thing. So the anchor text shows that the disclosure, or gives a clue that the disclosure is going to be important and relevant. Very important. Here's another example, really, of the same ad with a different type of disclosure. Here you see one, again, that relates to price. Restocking fee applies to all returns. If that were eliminated and there were no disclosure of the restocking fee, then according to the FTC, it would be deceptive. It would also be deceptive if it simply said more information, because it wouldn't give a clue to the consumer about how important it might be. Obviously, in the prior example, if it's about health, that's pretty important to a consumer who's likely to click on it. And again, a fee which adds to the cost of the transaction is also very important and relevant to the link. So that's how the FTC recommends that you go forward with these types of disclosures. So what are the key takeaways from this Hangout and this presentation? The first is that a deceptive ad claim is any statement or omission of a material fact or information that's likely to deceive a reasonable consumer, not an unreasonable one, but a reasonable one. Secondly, ad claims must be substantiated before publication before, not later. And the disclosures must be clear and conspicuous. So that's the end of this part of the presentation. And I'm going to show you the tags here that we have, and that would be add claim disclosures, add disclosures, and .com disclosures. If you go to the members area and FTC Guardian, log in and key in those tags in the search window, you'll see other information, certainly this one, but if there's other information related to that. I'm trying to switch back to me and to Alan. There's Alan. And maybe you don't see me yet, do you, Alan? I don't hear you either.
I'll click your camera up there.
There you go. All right, click my camera. Maybe that's it. Yeah.
There you go.
that'll do it. So I guess, this is sort of my trial run here on the new way that Webinar Jam works. So thank you for that. So
I do have a question, and this is from me. I'm just thinking forward stuff. Because a lot of people sell like WordPress plugins, right? What if we sell a WordPress? Us marketers sell a WordPress plugin for $10, and then the upsell is, do you want to keep current with updates and sell that for an additional annual fee as an upsell?
You're talking about selling legal stuff with the plugin.
No, I sell anything. I create a plugin that does something on a WordPress blog, on a WordPress site, and I sell the plugin for $49. I'm just thinking of a JV Zoom.
Right. And then there's an upsell for some option.
Yeah, the upsell later is to keep up to date with all the updates that are going to come throughout the year.
Well, here's my answer. What if one example would be that someone is selling a plugin that contains, say, privacy policy and terms of use in competition with FTC Guardian, right? And then there's an upsell to get the updates. I really think that you've got to disclose that there is an upsell price involved in the updates, because after a while, what you've bought is essentially worthless if you're not going to be able to get those updates. Right. So I think that would be very material. However, I'm not sure I can come up quickly with another example where the upsell doesn't really relate to something that you've got to have in order to enjoy the benefit of your purchase of the initial item. But if it's just a nice to have, but not a need to have, then you don't need to make the disclosure.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking, because so many people make WordPress plugins, and I build them myself. I build, some WordPress plugins. I'm working on one right now. And when you go to sell it, you sell it for the fee, and, $49.95, grab your plugin today, But everybody knows WordPress updates, right? It's going to update over the years. So I'm going to have to keep that plugin up to date. And if I'm going to have to spend the money to keep it updated, I'm going to have an annual fee of some sort in the future to keep it updated. So I'm assuming you would have to disclose that prior to actually selling it.
It's actually WordPress that's updating its platform.
Yeah, the WordPress is updating their platform in order to keep my plugin working. And if I add more benefits, if I say today I'm selling to do X and it does that, but I have some other items that I know that I want to include later in it, and you don't get those unless you subscribe to my service.
Right. What I'm saying, again, I think this is the key. If it's nice to have, but not necessary to have, it's only nice to have, you don't need to make any disclosure. It's just another bell or whistle that's nice to have. But if it's required to have or essential to have or necessary to have, you need to disclose it. However, we're talking about a bell or whistle that you're offering, right? What if someone is merely buying your base level plugin, we know that person is already on the WordPress platform.
Right.
And anybody that's already on WordPress would probably know that WordPress has to be updated from time to time. And that's a separate issue. So it's a WordPress issue, not you, the vendor, the marketer.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I think so. The real key question is it a nice to have or a need to have? And I think, if however you answer that question is going to tell you whether or not you need to make a disclosure.
Yeah, I think about it with WordPress. If I create a plugin and it's all, all cool with WordPress today, but then WordPress makes an update and all of a sudden my plugin doesn't work anymore. Then
but that was the platform that they had to already be on before they could purchase what you're offering. So I think, the roles here are reversed. You're saying maybe you should. You're playing the lawyer and I'm playing the marketer here, right? I'm saying
I'm creating a plugin right now, and what do I need to do? Because I'm creating a plugin.
You want to be able to have to disclose this, and I'm saying no, Alan, you really don't have to under those circumstances, right?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Dave, the difference between documented customer performance and customer testimonials. I mean, they're basically the same, right? Performance and testimonials.
Well, it's the same, but it's the same, but it isn't. It's the same in the sense that it's talking about what your product or service does or has done for this one individual. But this one individual's experience might be different from all these other customers. So what the FTC wants is information by way of substantiation of what the typical customer across the board experiences. And they want you to be able to convey that one way or the other. And that leads to this question. There is a third in the series of disclosures dealing with success story testimonials, which is precisely what that question involves. So you have a question or an announcement for that, right? In terms of timing?
I'll come to that because we still have a couple of questions on this first, and then we'll come back to it. Does prominence foreclose the use of small print? Are there examples of what the FTC decided through litigation or otherwise insufficient prominent?
Well, the best way to answer that question is what I suggested a few minutes ago, which is to go to Google, key in .com disclosures FTC.
We actually have it on the website.
We've got it on the website, but if they don't even want to take the time to log in, they can just right now.
It's in the membership area.
And pull it down and go immediately to the back of the publication. The front is all this text, but go to the back where they have all these pictures. And what I've taken here and shown in this presentation was copied from there, and it'll show you. But if you think back to the presentation here, some of those disclosures were in smaller text than the price or the pearls or whatever. It's just that it has to be large enough to be noticed and to be prominent. It doesn't have to be exactly the same size. And you can get a really quick idea, a clear idea very quickly by just going to the back, to the exhibits in the back of that publication. And you can see for yourself exactly what the FTC likes and what they don't like.
Yep. It says, when requesting client testimonials for me to post on my website, is there some sort of contract or specific FTC compliance wording that I need the client to sign off on? If so, do we have those, if so, do we have guidelines for them? Do we have some sort of
no specific type of request? The only thing you have to remember, and we've covered this in prior Hangouts, is that if you provide a benefit of any kind for the testimonial, you have to disclose it. For example, if that testimonialist is an affiliate, you need to say compensated affiliate. Or if you gave them a review copy, testimonials received a complimentary review copy. You need to indicate that. But how you ask for the testimonial, it's completely up to you. But if you ask and say there's going to be a reward for it, then you've got to disclose that, that we're.
Yeah, and you have to be careful when you're asking for testimonial because, people get a little bit overzealous with some of their testimonials. And remember that if you are questioned later, you've got to be able to prove. And we use the weight loss a lot because it's just the easiest to go to or make money online. They're the easiest ones to go to. But it doesn't matter whether it's those two categories, those two niches, weight loss or make money online. It the same applies to every single niche or marketplace. Is that can they substantiate that testimonial, and can you have access to that? Because the FTC is not going to go to them for substantiation. They're going to go to you for substantiation. So you need to have that substantiation in your
Exactly.
in your folders. In your folder somewhere, you're going to need that substantiation so that you can do it if they request it. So,
and one thing I think we definitely need to do in a future Hangout, probably very soon, is we need to drill down a little bit into substantiation. I've mentioned it in passing and given the general rule as I did tonight, 4 or 5 bullets, and that was it. But I think we need to give more on what is substantiation in a future Hangout, and we'll probably do that in the next month or so. So we're getting questions about that, and we always seem to. So I think we need to provide more information, and we'll do that very shortly.
Yeah, and we've got so many new members. I'm going to just make this. So if you come on the Hangout again, and I'm going to get to some of these questions that are in the chat box and not in the question box. But if you come on a Hangout again, there's at the bottom where you enter your question, click the little bubble and make it a question. It makes it pop up in a different screen so it doesn't get clogged up. But we're going to talk about this one with Ron. It says, this might be a tough one. And again, this is something that we have to, I can't say, we don't tiptoe around, but it's what we have to do as well. It says, this might be a tough one. I offer consulting service. My main product is, it just moved. And that's the reason things move when people put them in the chat box. My main is guaranteed compliance program. I guarantee that the foundational EPA compliance requirements are covered, but I do not guarantee the safety of my client's employee. Am I in trouble if I do not disclose the fact?
Well, let me say we're getting very, very specific there. And one of the things we do, and we say here periodically, is we can answer general questions, but when it starts getting very, very specific to you exactly, specifically your facts, then we may be crossing the line from general information to actually practicing law, which we don't do. We're not a law firm. Let me just say this, and this is about as far as I can go in this discussion, and that is what you seem to be saying is a real close case. You say you're in compliance with some standards, but then you can't guarantee something that's very closely related to what you could be able to guarantee if you were compliant.
Well,
right?
What it says here, it says, really, I my main product in I guarantee compliance program. And,
it looks as if you're really very, very close to contradicting what you said earlier.
Right.
So you say you're in compliance.
Let me put it in perspective for you. We, as FTC Guardian, can't guarantee everybody's compliance with FTC Guard with the Federal Trade Commission, because we provide you all the information that you need to be compliant. But if then you go off willy-nilly and do something stupid online, even though you've got our documents on your website and you do all this stuff, and then you go off and you make some post on Facebook, or you put some ads on your site that say lose 10 pounds in 10 days, we can't guarantee that. We give you the knowledge and information. So that's the part you should probably kind of address in your own business there.
Right.
Other
questions? Hopefully,
we got a lot over here. Can we use testimonials along with proven scientific studies? Ooh, that's a tough one. Or should we just avoid testimonials altogether?
Well, we're going to cover that maybe at the end of this month. And Alan's going to talk to you in just a minute about when we schedule it. But the next disclosure workshop, third in the series of 3, is going to be about success story testimonials. And I'll tell you this, success story testimonials are treated as if they were ad claims. They're actually made by one of your customers, but they say essentially the same thing. I lost 10 pounds in the first month. I made $10,000 in the first month. The same thing that you might say in your headline on your sales page, but the testimonialist is actually saying the same thing based on his or her actual results. They're treated as ad claims. They need to be substantiated. And we're going to go into that in excruciating detail, maybe in the next Hangout, depending on what Alan comes up with.
Yep. And then here's one from Avery, and this comes up quite a bit because people see people doing this online a lot in the info space, make money online, is can you simply put the testimonial where your client says something like, this product helped me earn X number of dollars, then follow the disclaimer up, then follow up with the disclaimer that people who buy the product are not guaranteed to make the amount of money or any da 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 da. I've seen this done a lot.
That is squarely what we're going to be talking about next time. But, one of the rules that we have here, and we say this in all of our webinars, is that when you're on a Hangout, when you attend, we don't require that you ask questions about the topic that we've just covered, right? They're questions and we try to answer them. But I'm going to say we're going to go into much more detail next time. But here's where we get to into the fine point of it. Basically, what you're saying there in your disclaimer is another way of saying results are not typical, right? The results of this testimonial were successful. That's what we mean by a success story testimonial. They really did well, right? So then you say results not typical. Well, beginning in 2009, and we'll go into more detail on this in this next Hangout, beginning in 2009, that disclaimer was prior to 2009, it was, quote, a safe harbor. In other words, if you put it there, you were fine. Results not typical. However, in 2009, a new set of guides came out about endorsements and testimonials, which took the safe harbor away. And the FTC started saying, beginning in 2009, you could say results not typical, but alone it wouldn't be sufficient as it had been previously. What you needed to say in addition was what the typical customer should expect to experience. And we're going to talk, and sometimes that is fairly easy for you to do. You have data, you have information that you can, you know what the typical customer does. And we're going to have an example by a very well-known company. This is in our next Hangout that does a lot of weight loss commercials on television. I see them all the time, right? And they have this little thing that pops up. In fact, I'm going to show you one of their examples that's on their website. And it basically says, typical customer can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week, right? That's what the typical customer can expect, even though the testimonialist did better than that. So again, results not typical. It used to be all you needed. Now you need more. You need to have that information, the disclosure of what the typical customer might expect to experience. And again, we'll go into all sorts of detail on that in the next disclosure workshop dealing solely with success story testimonials.
Okay, here's the one on trademark stuff. It says, I have a question when doing SEO. So I know what they're doing. They're doing keyword SEO stuff. If using keywords from competitors, if they have a TM on it and we don't know what could happen if we have been using it.
In other words, can you use someone else's trademark as your keyword, or buy a pay-per-click, buy that keyword, buy that trademark term as a PPC word? The answer is yes, you can do that. And for a long time, beginning, I don't know, I lose track of time, so maybe 10, 12 years ago, trademark owners were suing the heck out of people who were doing that. And there was this legal theory called initial interest consumer confusion, right? And it's a very vague theory in trademark law, but the trademark owners were hanging their hat on that and suing people who were doing it. But over a long time, the courts finally got, I guess, it just seemed wrong that you could buy somebody else's trademark as your, you could buy the Ford trademark and use it in an ad advertising a Chevrolet. It just seemed something wrong with that. But over time, and fairly recently, in the last 2-3 years, it's now well settled that that is not trademark infringement. You can do it.
Yeah, I will tell you from a pay-per-click standpoint, that Google and those companies, once somebody says that that's my trademark, they will just turn your not necessarily turn your turn. They won't close your account down. You won't have access to those keywords anymore, because I've done that before.
Have you really?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but what happens with the keywords is, as soon as somebody pops in and says, "Hey, that's my trademark," they'll just turn off those keywords for you. AdWords, stuff like that.
If that guy tries to sue you in a court of law for trademark infringement, he's not going to get anywhere with it these days.
Yeah, and I can tell you that cost me like $5,000 about 10 years ago.
Yeah, back then you could sue people and win, and then the court started thinking, well, applying very traditional trademark legal principles, and no, it's not.
It cost me $5,000. We didn't even go to court. It cost me $5,000 to pay off the attorney in Massachusetts,
right?
Because he'd sent me a bunch of paperwork, and I had just ignored it because I thought, what the hell? I don't need to, Anyway, when I finally got a certified FedEx letter, I took it to another attorney, and it cost me $5,000 in attorney's fees just to make it go away. So
do not. One of the morals of that story is do not ignore a demand letter.
Yeah, don't. And I did. I ignored it for 3 months probably.
And by the way, I think a couple of years ago, we actually have a Hangout topic on demand letters. So if you're interested, you look it up.
Yep. What about those people who say results not typical, and then goes on to basically insult the majority of the people who are saying something like the vast majority of the people are actually, we see this on webinars a lot. Basically, the vast majority of the people are not actually willing to change, will not, do whatever. So absolutely nothing, don't expect anything from this program. I see those slides all the time on webinars.
Getting into next week's the next topic, success story testimonials. But
here's what I'll do. Do you want to answer that a little bit, or
let me answer it? I mean, when you think about what the FTC now requires, as I mentioned just a minute ago, they require more than results not typical. In other words, they require you to very succinctly describe what the typical customer might experience. And if you're a weight loss company, you should have some pretty good data on that. It shouldn't be mysterious to you that the average customer is only losing 1 to 2 pounds a week rather than 10 pounds a week, right? So you've got that data. But then if you're marketing not a weight loss program, but a money-making opportunity, right, then it gets a lot more difficult to get data, because some of those people may not even follow the program correctly. Right. And so you may not have data. And so if you're talking about the average customer, really, you only should be talking about the average customer who really tries to implement the program and follows all the training. Right. You shouldn't have to include people who just sort of quit halfway through and didn't really try. So once you start thinking about the FTC requirement about disclosing what the typical customer might experience, you can immediately start thinking of circumstances where it would be pretty easy to do that. And then you can think of others where, if you're a marketer, what do you do? I mean, it's pretty difficult. And I read an article this weekend, a long article written by an attorney, claiming that new requirement that began in 2009 is really unfair, because in certain circumstances it seemed to be reasonably applicable, and in others it put the marketer in a really bad position of having to disclose something for which it was very difficult to get information to disclose. So we'll talk about that in the next one. But and sometimes you see a disclaimer like that. A lot of times people don't try, they don't really apply all the training, and that might be part of something that you need to do, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So here's the deal, guys. We only schedule out of our schedule and out of your schedule, 20 minutes for Chip's program and another 15, 20 minutes, basically an hour, no more than an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. And we've already gone 48 minutes here for our basic hangouts, and we keep getting more questions. So what we like to do is we do these in short little blocks and we build on them, right? So the next hangout that we had scheduled was something else. It wasn't
image rights.
It was on image rights. So that was the next hangout we had scheduled for the end of April. was image rights, and we were going to come back to the third of this series in May. So like the first Hangout in May. But what we're going to do is put it out to you guys, and if we get enough people who want to, we can make the change, right? I mean, it's just us. You know, we've 100 plus members or whatever, so it's just us. It's not like it's the whole world. We can change if you guys think you want to do it. We can change and make the next Hangout, which will be April the 25th, I think, something like that. Yeah, we can make April the 25th or whatever that is, the third in this series, so that we do this all this month. And then we'll change May around.
Well, the first one in May would be image rights. And I strongly recommend we do it, because more of our questions tonight have been on that topic, success story testimonials, than on the ad claim issues we've just addressed here in my presentation. So we've had so many questions, and there's so much interest in that. Why wait? That's my recommendation. I think we ought to do the success story testimonials, the next time, so that we have continuity here on these disclosures, particularly on one where we have so much interest. That's my recommendation. That's my two.
Well, we're getting actually, it's 50-50. People are kind of going, yes, keep the series going. The other one, Bob says no, do image rights, that kind of stuff.
Well, there's not going to be more than 3 weeks difference either way.
Well, see, Clayton is saying switch it up. Clayton just came in and said switch it up, change it up, make it different. So we'll see. We know that this is a hot topic, because every time we do something around testimonials and puffery and all that kind of stuff, it's always very well attended, and at the same time, we always get a lot of questions. So we do have a couple more questions here that we want to get through.
Fire away. Let's do them.
Yep. Client testimonials that say, you helped me triple my income, doesn't specify how you help them do it, doesn't specify a dollar amount or anything like that. What does that do?
Well, that's an interesting one. Let me tell you what the rule is, and then we'll try to fit the facts of your question into the rule. The rule is that if the testimonial is only a general opinion, then it basically sort of amounts to puffery. I mean, again, remember, a success story testimonial is considered like an ad claim. And so if your customer is just giving his or her opinion very generally and not a specific amount of money in a specific period of time, then, it's like puffery, and there's no need to substantiate it or anything, or disclaim or disclose anything, right? So I guess the question is that fact situation that you just mentioned, does it fall into the category of opinion? And I think it probably does. It says triple the income, which is, sort of specific, but it doesn't mention any period of time. I mean, triple my income in the last 5 years, or in the last 5 months, or 5 weeks, or 5 days.
I'm not an attorney, but to me, that's getting into the puffery thing, with obviously Papa John's, right? Better ingredients.
Right. So I think because it lacked the time in which someone tripled their income, then I think it sort of falls into the category of opinion. Yeah. Now, clearly opinion would be, this is the best money-making opportunity training I've ever seen. It's wonderful. That's clearly opinion. But now you move a little bit toward fact when you say something fairly specific, but omit the time period. I tripled my income, but last 10 years, last 20 days, when? So I think at that point, you're not going to have to disclose anything and substantiate it.
Yeah. So if you just think about it, guys, if you're in the weight loss or any of those categories that do that stuff, if you're seeking testimonials from people that you could actually use on your website, they can say, I've lost 10 pounds. I've lost 10 pounds since I was 20 years old. But as long as they don't say how old they are today, right? Then there's no time period. There's just,
right, exactly. I told you just a minute ago, we're going to be talking about a very well-known weight loss company that you're going to recognize, Nutrisystem, right? I'll say it, where they are now saying in their ads on their website, I'm going to give you a clear example. I lost 80 pounds. Well, how long did it take?
I've lost 1,000. I've lost 1,000.
I mean, I've probably lost 1,000 over my lifetime, but they all came back, right? Most of them. But but you'll also see that Nutrisystem has an asterisk up there, and then right below the picture of the person making the testimonial, typical customers should expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. So, I'll show you exactly how they do it, and I think they're probably doing it correctly. So again, stay tuned for the end of the month. That's what my recommendation is.
Yeah, and Avery, the same is true with you. You help me earn $1,000, but you don't have a specific time. So just always think time period.
Yeah, if it's
money, provable
in a time period, then it can be false. If it's money in a time period, it can either be true or false.
If I hit you up and say prove that fact, then you have to be able to prove that fact, right?
You have to say, if it's not typical what a customer does, then you have to say results not typical, reason or the typical customer experience X.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll tell you straight up, we're not here to tell you don't use testimonials. We're just saying if you use testimonials, you just know that you've crossed that line and that you need to have substantiation for it.
Right.
Or if you just want to go the other way, which is a far easier way, then play in the puffery realm and don't be concerned about it at all. I mean, if you've got the substantiating data, then you can go that route, right? But just know that.
And I'm going to show you some examples. In this presentation, I clipped some examples from the FTC's .com disclosures, some examples of doing it right and some examples of doing it incorrectly. And the next time, I'm going to show the same thing. One is Nutrisystem, I've just mentioned, but I'll actually show you exactly what the ad looks like and how they did it. And we can talk about, are they real close to the line or not? Or, we can talk about that. But you're going to get a lot of very valuable information, I think, about a lot of the questions that have been asked tonight. Some of them I've answered a little bit. In the next Hangout. So
and Clayton, make sure you show up on the next webinar or whenever we do the next in the series, if it's this month or the next month. It's because it from your question, it sounds like you haven't been on one of these before. We've talked a lot about puffery versus testimonials, and yes, puffery is always the win if you just don't have to worry about ad claims. If you understand how to use puffery, it's the best way to go because you just don't have to substantiate anything, and you're making puffery statements. So,
and if you're new to being a member or attending Hangouts, you hear the word puffery and you say, "Is that really a legal term?" I mean, it sounds sort of funky, but it really is a legal term. Puffery. Do a search on it in the members area, and you'll see probably 3 or 4 Hangouts dealing with it because every time we talk about it, there are lots of questions. And it is the safest way to go, as Alan points out, rather than the ad claim route.
Right. All right, guys, we don't want to keep anybody on any later. It's almost, what's 5 to 8, something like that, our time. So thank everybody I want to thank you for being here. We've got so many people on today. And again, we've just brought on a whole lot more members. So, and we're glad we were able to do it in this new format of what Webinar Jam is calling jam sessions. I hope it looks okay on your side. It looks okay to us. This is our first one in this new format. So hope it works out, and we'll continue. Continue it up. Chip?
Yeah, I like the new web jam session. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Yep.
I like it. I mean, the buttons are in different places, and once you get accustomed to that, it's fine. But I think from what I've seen so far, and this is our first one, as Alan points out, I like it so far. I hope it comes through very clear for you as well. So that closes out this Hangout for this evening. We certainly appreciate your attendance. And either at the end of this month or the first of the next month, we will cover success story testimonials. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot more questions, but we'll have more answers for you too as well.
All right.
So
thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.